Today, we're going to take a look at some of the worst parenting choices in cinema history within Godzilla vs. King Kong. Quite often, cinema relies upon putting its characters in the worst place at the wrong time for the story to happen. And oftentimes, writers find ingenious ways of taking those characters and getting them to say and do what is required to get them to go through that pit, that fiery pit of challenges that's called the story. And other times, writers in such a corner, they end up forcing the characters to do something which is really out of character or completely out of this world. There's nothing wrong with a bit of lateral thinking, but if it literally breaks the character's own belief systems, their moral code, you better have a really, really good reason for it.
You don't think the king could take care of himself?
And thus, we have the Godzilla vs. King Kong problem. How do we get a teenager and a young girl in close proximity to two titans who have caused unparalleled global damage and a catastrophic death toll on the human race? So we should first start off by talking about what writers really can't get around. There are a few human instincts which are pretty much ingrained in us humans in our entirety as a race. Most obviously is the will to survive. So basically, we're afraid of dying and we're willing to do pretty much anything to live through any given circumstance.
Hey you! Where's your clearance tag?
You know what? The fact that you're talking about clearance tags right now in a time of crisis is incredibly unprofessional.
The next very ingrained behavior is a parent's will to protect their child no matter what. They will traverse the planet to ensure that their child is safe. So, enter the first major dramatic problem in the film. The teenage daughter and father who meet up at this encampment just after Godzilla has made his first attack in the movie.
That podcast is filling your head with garbage. You should be in school.
I am just trying to help.
I don't want you to help. I want you to stay safe.
We can see that the father is pretty upset with his daughter. She seems to be giving him some cockamamie information from some podcast, and he's basically just brushing her off. However, there's a few issues with the script here which kind of start to ring some alarm bells for us. First things first, she's out of school. He makes a comment to this. He understands that she's currently playing hooky from school, yet he makes no moves to address this other than highlighting the fact that she should be in school.
And the last thing that I is to be worrying about you.
It's important to note what the father's job is, however. He is basically a scientist who in the previous movies specialized in various forms of new age communication, and that actually translated into hopefully trying to communicate with the Titans, which is something that the film does actually tackle a little later. But for now, he is basically trying to communicate or find out why Godzilla was there.
Godzilla saved us. You were there with Mom. You saw it. How could you doubt him? There has to be a pattern.
What needs to happen dramatically is that the daughter needs to feel ignored. Therefore, she's going to go off on her own on a perilous journey across the globe in hunt of the truth about Godzilla and its attack. First things first, plausibility. I get that Mark is there and that basically this situation is pretty stressful for him. However, when the daughter brings actually quite conclusive evidence based on his own experience of Godzilla and he ignores her. In fact, he goes one step further to cite an argument that makes no scientific sense.
There has to be a pattern here.
There doesn't.
A reason why he was provoked.
There isn't.
How do you know that?
Because creatures like people can change.
Then, in the very next line, completely contradicts himself.
And right now Godzilla's out there and he's hurting people and we don't know why. So cut your pop some slack, would you?
For a scientist, he is very unwilling to discuss any other option other than we don't know with his daughter, who is bringing some form of rational thought to this situation.
See you at home, Dad.
Ultimately, they dramatically had to push the daughter to a point where she gave up trying to go to her father for help and instead went after it herself, setting her off on a journey without her father's knowledge towards Godzilla. Because, you know, it's not like this thing doesn't have a history of obliterating everything in its path. I mean, it's strange enough that Mark seems to be absolutely fine with his daughter being relatively nearby the epicenter of a Godzilla attack. He didn't tell her to go home, he didn't get her straight in a taxi and tell her to go to a safety camp or an area or some type of silo. To reinforce the daughter's frustration with the father, we're given quite a few camera angles that really reinforce in us the idea that the father doesn't really take his daughter that seriously and he's not willing to listen to her in this situation. Thus we get some lower angle shots and we also get some shots like this where the father is much bigger in frame and we can see that he is in control of this situation. It is up to him to decide if they are going to follow her line of thought or not. But when she makes her decision to go back home, we suddenly break away from two shots into single shots where we realize that they are about to go off in totally different directions. They fundamentally believe different things.
We needed a plan to keep peace with these things, and the best one we had just went down in flames.
Although this argument is really nicely paced and really nicely shot. I mean, the blocking alone of those extras, that must have taken forever.
Dad, I'm telling you, there is something provoking him that we're not seeing here.
I believe the filmmakers have actually done a really good job with the script that they've been given here, where they've really dramatically realized the argument between the daughter and the father. But fundamentally, from a motivation perspective, I do feel like there may be a few things they pushed quite far to make this happen. Enter the King Kong Whisperer and her proxy mother, who happens to also be a brilliant scientist. Which, would that make King Kong her proxy father? This King Kong Whisperer happens to also be a 7 to 8 year old girl. The subplot for this young girl is that she lost her entire family on Skull Island, and King Kong and this scientist both chose to make sure that this girl was safe and was brought up the right way. I do believe the filmmakers did a fabulous job staging this relationship between this young girl and King Kong. However, there happens to be a gaping hole in the story. King Kong's getting fat on the good life and he's getting too big to stay in this containment zone any longer. And they give us a fantastic problem. Yes, if he comes out of this big dome, Godzilla will know where he is and will come and fight him. And they're worried that King Kong just won't be able to stand up to the force of nature that is Godzilla. So instead, they drug King Kong up completely. They put him on a ship and they try and sail him to Antarctica to get him to a place where he'll be safer. They are obviously attacked by Godzilla. So after they barely survive the onslaught of Godzilla on the ocean, they have a snazzy idea. Let's just airlift King Kong and everything we need the rest of the way. You'd think that would probably be a really good idea to begin with. And we get back to the parenting side of this. Well, the guardian of this orphaned young girl who happens to be a King Kong Whisperer has decided to bring said girl along on this trip, this incredibly dangerous trip, which they don't really know if they're going to have to deal with Godzilla, the force of nature, the thing that they know, no matter how much they shoot these things. I mean, human weapons really make no difference to any of these Titans at any point. So I don't know why they just keep firing and irritating these monsters. It just doesn't seem to make sense. Anyway, so now I can understand, let's bring her along just in case she's needed to make sure to keep King Kong calm. That makes a lot of sense. But they don't know that this girl has the ability to communicate with King Kong yet. Yet she's on this trip. So it is rather strange that that seems to be the modus operandi. Let's bring the young girl who's got her entire life ahead of her into all of the most dangerous situations and really have no major backup plans on how to actually keep her proxy daughter, her stepdaughter, her daughter-in-law, whatever, safe. I mean, I suppose one could argue how safe could you be in the face of a Titan, but I would have thought maybe she'd have like a helicopter ready on call just in case they need to get out of there. However, we are faced with yet another improbable parenting decision. Once the girl has convinced King Kong to go down to the center of the earth, her role is basically done. So, why then does her guardian decide, hey, let's bring her along for the ride? We learn earlier in the film that the entire expedition that tried to make this journey previously were all killed in this journey. So when they just hop in the ships, they put on their safety belt, and with a nice reassuring smile, the mother and daughter are off to the center of the earth for no real reason at all. Yeah. I mean, we already know that King Kong won't just kill humans for no reason, only unless he is provoked. So surely, as long as they don't shoot King Kong in the back...
Go!
They don't really need the little girl there to keep them all safe. It doesn't seem to make much sense. So, on a side note, the ships they go down to the center of the earth in happen to be completely brand new technology that is completely untested because nobody has made this journey before. So, why do they all seem to be quite so sure about this? Something smells like speed up the plot. Thank you very much. Now, they've made the dangerous journey to the center of the earth and they all seem to be quite happy because it's so pretty down there. Even if there is a completely unmotivated source of light that happens to be in the center of the earth. I mean, we need to see what's going on. Definitely. That makes a lot of sense. Now, for the eagle-eyed of you, you would have noticed that they didn't fly with just one ship, not even two. They flew with 3 ships. So we know when we see them get into those ships, one ship has one particular important character, the other ship has the mother and daughter, and the third ship happens to be filled with extras. I wonder which ship gets eaten first.
Getting some strange radar activity. We're gonna circle back.
So now we know that the center of the earth has other Titans and is incredibly dangerous. As a parent of this child, wouldn't you think that it's probably about the right time to about face and get your ass out of there? Because as we saw, these ships literally have no defense to the creatures that happen to be down there. I actually thoroughly enjoyed watching Godzilla vs. King Kong. I thought it was exactly what it said on the tin. It basically is a movie which just pits those two creatures together whenever they can get them together. And it adds some interesting lore to the universe as they continue and inevitably will make a next movie. Go into this film to enjoy some entertainment and don't necessarily look for any parenting techniques while you're doing it.